Something tells me that this game was not meant to be as short as the final product turned out. We all know that they ended up cutting around 70% of what we got from the original version, but that's not exactly what I'm talking about here. Cause after looking at the concept art for Resident Evil 3 Remake, there's no doubt that the developers had a whole different set of locations in mind. So let's analyze some of these detailed backgrounds and concept art to observe what we could have gotten for this remake version of Resident Evil 3. The apartment complex. Here's an area that was likely going to be explored, but instead it ended up being a rushed pathway to escape the Nemesis before we even got to our first zombie encounter. Imagine if Nemesis did not show up at the very start of the game, and we instead got to walk around the apartment complex to check up on her neighbors. After all, Jill was known to care about her neighbors in the original, well, at least in the prologue and novelization of the games. So it would have felt like a great way to raise the tension by seeing that some of her neighbors were freaking out, locking themselves in, or talking about what they witnessed before things start getting out of control. The concept art makes it look like we could have explored some of these rooms to check up on some of our neighbors and find out that some of them have either turned into zombies or killed themselves before turning into one. I feel like this would have raised some tension from the start of the game rather than instantly throwing Nemesis right at us like the Kool-Aid Man breaking through the freaking bedroom wall, which makes no sense after seeing that he can't even get through a wooden door seconds later. There was an apartment that we got to enter halfway through the game after exiting the Kendall gun shop, but it doesn't resemble the concept art either, nor does it have a dead civilian with words written in blood on the wall. But I did like that we at least got to quickly explore through someone else's home rather than breezing through it like we did at Jill's apartment when fleeing from the Nemesis, so I guess we at least got that, right? The warehouse. The concept art for the warehouse looks a lot more closer to the original game's design, which is quite surprising to see because it makes you believe that they were intending on making this game follow the original more over trying to redesign everything from creatures designs to creating new locations. In the original, you didn't have to stick around for long after grabbing the keys upstairs, but it became our first safe zone. We got to gather up equipment, save, or learn about the new tool that let us create our own ammunition. Sadly, in the remake, the warehouse is practically nothing. Dario Rosso is thrown in there, but it feels like the developers probably took a few hours to program him in, along with the design of the warehouse. There's nothing memorable here. He no longer sounds like a terrified father. Now he's more like an 80-year-old fart at a retirement home trying to hog up all the jello. It's embarrassing. This is one character I could honestly say, why'd they even bother including him? Heck, why'd they even bother including the warehouse if this is what they came up with?
The parking garage isn't far. I can
The only safe place is in here!
Sir, what's your name? I can't just leave you behind.
It's Dario Rosso. And yeah, right. You just want to steal my safe house. Get your own, Missy.
Missy? Would you please calm down? I'm a police officer. I'm here to help.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you've been doing a bang-up job. You want to help? Go handcuff yourself to one of those freaks.
Sir, this is your last chance. No one else is coming for you.
I'm not going anywhere! I'd rather starve to death in here than be eaten by one of those undead monsters. Now leave me alone!
Bar Jack, or Jack's Bar. This is the bar where Brad sacrifices himself, but since it became part of a quick cutscene, we don't get to explore it. We can't really look at any of the details for that matter. But the concept art makes this location look fantastic from the inside. At first, I didn't even realize it was the same bar. Looks completely different from the concept art. Looks way better in my opinion. And if this turned out to be an explorable area, I'd spend a good 10 minutes or so appreciating the attention to details. It may look crowded and narrow, but those details look very impressive. In the concept art, not the final result of the game's version. The Stagla gas station. This is one of the locations we got to explore in the original. It's not even a big building, so to me it doesn't make sense as to why they would not even bother to include it, seeing as they did include certain areas such as the warehouse, but with that, they ended up turning it into a linear path that you quickly breeze through in the beginning. The gas station may not have been big, but it still served a good purpose to the story. Yet here, we can only see it from a short distance. The moment we're about to reach it, the game throws us a cutscene and we're forced to go back into the subway tunnels. Looking at the concept art, it seems like we would have gone through a similar scenario where it catches on fire and we quickly have to get away from it before it explodes. Imagine if we actually got to explore it and pick up a useful item, then Nemesis shows up, and since it's a small and crowded area, it could have been a bit suspenseful to try and get away from the Nemesis. And maybe instead of having the gas station catch on fire due to a spark lighting a fire from the leaking fuel, maybe we could have set the station on fire ourselves in hopes of taking him down. But again, this would have been great if the player had the choice of doing this rather than making it part of a cutscene where Jill or Carlos cause the fire themselves instead of making it a player choice. However, seeing as the developers never gave us any real choices such as this example, I'd say they would have still turned it into a cutscene, sadly. Aruka's clothing store. This clothing store was essential to the game in my opinion, because in the original, this is where the player goes to change outfits after unlocking new costumes. And if you didn't know, the original included up to 7 new costumes, whereas the remake only included 2. Unbelievable, right? Especially when you look at Resident Evil Resistance, a game that came bundled with this game, and there they gave Jill plenty of extra costumes to unlock. So if that game came with additional costumes for her, why is it that Jill can't transfer those costumes over to this game? Till today, there are still people that defend this game just because it was a fun experience. I agree it's a fun experience, I mean we can't deny that, but you can't tell me that we shouldn't criticize the developers for half-assing this game when they removed over 70% of what the original had, and they couldn't even bother to let us transfer any of the costumes we unlocked in Resistance. That's insane! I mean, even older games such as the Resident Evil Outbreak let us transfer every single character costume and AI character models over to the second Outbreak game, and those were tons of costumes and character models. So there are simply no excuses when it comes to this game. It's not even half-assing, it's full-assing when you can't even use Jill's costumes from Resistance over to the remake. That would have been the bare minimum, yet amazing if you could do that. In fact, players who never bothered to play Resistance would be inclined to play the crap out of Resistance just so they can give Jill those particular costumes. In the end, I know we all wanted to see everything from the original story and features brought onto the remake version, but this could have still been a vast improvement to the remake even if they didn't follow what the original had in store for us. Because if we couldn't end up going into the Raccoon City Park or the Clock Tower, then we at least could have visited new locations in Raccoon City and explored Jill's apartment, neighborhoods, grocery stores, the movie theater, a video renting store, more city streets, or any of the unvisited locations shown in the concept art for Resident Evil 2 Remake, like the expanded orphanage or the collapsed monorail. There are a few videos online where people have managed to hack the game and walk through walls in order to explore areas that we could not explore for ourselves, and once again, it baffles me to see how much detail was thrown in at areas that cannot be explored. That's why I was wondering if the developers were intending on creating new areas for us to explore, but tossed them aside since they wanted to release the game 1 year after the release of the Resident Evil 2 Remake. I understand that the original was released a year after Resident Evil 2, but times have changed, graphics have changed, and since they no longer want to go with fixed camera angles, then they have to put more time and effort to create every bit of detail for every single area in the game. So a deadline of a year is in no way going to pay off if this is a full-priced game, and especially if they're trying to compete with the original Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. It's out of the question, but I was hoping, like everyone, that we'd at least get some new areas and features through DLC over time. But the bastards decided to give us 0 DLC, not a single bit of DLC. 2 years have passed since the release of this game. Capcom is still posting tweets about this game, acting as if they're proud of themselves and as if they please the fans, but it's clear that they're ignoring all sorts of criticism, even when they sent out a survey for us fans to let them know how we truly felt about the game, and yet they still don't intend on delivering with a full price experience. And they'll continue to celebrate this game through tweets and completely ignore every comment about a director's cut or any DLC as if criticism doesn't exist for this game. They can lie to themselves as much as they want, but the true fans will never be fooled. And yet, we'll always be there with our fingers crossed, hoping that they go back to their original roots and remember what made this franchise big in the first place. That's it for the video. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button to give this video a chance to grow. I'd like to thank all my Patreon supporters for their impeccable generosity. Your support means a lot to me, and you are part of the reason why I try to make the best content that I can. And if you like this content, check out the rest of my channel. You'll find more entertainment from separate franchises I like to cover, such as Mortal Kombat, Dragon Ball Z, Celebrity Deathmatch, Men in Black, The Mask, Batman comics, The Terminator, TMNT, Dino Crisis, Resident Evil, and more. If you're a Patreon supporter, check out my exclusive videos such as the Gantz content. And if you'd like to show your support, go to my Patreon and support the channel, which is only $1. Sacrifice that McChicken for extra quality content, my friend. But anyways, I'll see you all in the next video, and remember to have an awesome day.